So what I want to look at today is something that everybody knows. We all know this this idea that the Torah tells us, where Hashem says to Avram that you mustn't worry about anything, right? That everything will be good. He will have he'll be great. He'll have a great nation. And he turns to Hashem and he says to him, "What do you mean? How can you say that? Whatever you say, ani holech ariri. I'm barren. I've got no children. But ben mesek you the mesek Eliezer, and the only person who's in charge of my household, the only person who's really now who's close to me, who I can trust, the person I would leave everything to, is the Damascus manservant Eliezer. Remember, he's now split with Lot. Lot is no longer features in his world as a person. He no longer carries the values. Yes, Eliezer carries those values, but at the end of the day, he's not part of the family. So if that's the case. Sorry, 1 second. My daughter is making such a noise. 1 second. Sorry. So if that's the case, it doesn't really help Abraham to know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to bless him. So he says, so Hashem says to him, the pasuk says, "V'nei davar Hashem elav leimor." Hashem speaks to him and he says to him, "Lo yirashcha zeh." This person, this Damascus manservant, he will not be the one who will be your heir. Ki im asher yatzeh mimeyecha, the one who comes from your issue, your loins. Hu yirishecha. He is the one who will inherit you. So at this point in time, Hashem has made a promise to Avraham Avinu that Avraham Avinu will have some children. How, where, what the parameters of that are, we're not sure. And what does he do? The Torah describes how HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes Avraham Avinu outside, and he says to him, Habeitna hashamayma, look up to the heavens, and count the stars. If you're able to count them. This is what your children will be like. And the obvious question is, so Rashi says that Rashi says that the obvious thing is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes him out of his tent to look up to the stars, and he tells him the story. Look at the stars. There's so many of them. That's what your children will be like. But Rashi says there's a midrash, and the midrash says, "Amalo tzeimat tignut shalcha shera'ita b'mazalot she'encha atid lahamid ben." Says you need to move yourself out of your fixed understanding of the astrological process that has told you that through normal mazel, you will not have a child. Remember, Avram is very in touch with the universe, let's call it, and he sees within it that this concept of mazel, the concept of astrology. All of those are real, at least according to what Rashi is saying. They're real. However, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to him, you need to move yourself out of the connection to mazel, because mazel is a natural force in which the world runs with. And that mazel says Avram ein lo ben. That says Avram has not got a son. Aval Avram yesh lo ben. Avram will have a child. Sarah lo etzaled, aval Sarah taled. The astrology says Sarah is not going to have a child, but she will have a child. And how will that happen? Ani korei lachem shem acher v'yishtaneh hamazel. I'm going to call you something different. And when I call you something different, the whole mazel will change. Everything's going to change, says Rashi. Because why? Because you're no longer the same person. That's one understanding. The other understanding is he took him out of this world and put him above the stars. Above the stars. If you're above the stars, then you're not bound by the stars. Why would Avram Avinu, who's connected not to mazel, he's not connected to the natural world? Rav Soloveitchik speaks about that as the Jewish people. We have a destiny. We don't live in the causal world. We live in a parallel world. Obviously, we live to a certain degree within this world, but as a Jewish people, we have a destiny, and that destiny ultimately has to be fulfilled, and therefore we go beyond the natural order of the universe. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying to Avraham Avinu, you need to move yourself beyond the natural, go above the stars. And you can't count the stars, you can't really understand what is going to happen to you in your life. That's the way Rashi wants to understand it. The Emek Davar says something different. But as an introduction to the Emek Davar, just want to mention something really wonderful. That this week we saw that this Israeli-American professor, Joshua Angrist, who is a professor at MIT, so he's one of the 3 winners of the Nobel Prize for Economics. Don't understand what it is that he got the Nobel Prize for, but he has this guy, Israeli, he gets the Nobel. Of all the people in the world, right? We have another Israeli, another Jew that wins the Nobel Prize. And says the Netziv, right, that's not unusual. I mean, I'm saying what he's saying, but what he says is the following. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe, to Avraham Avinu, go out, usvar hakochavim, go and count the stars. He says, lo bishvil ribui. He says it's not because of the amount of stars. It's impossible to count the stars. Nobody can count the stars. There's billions and billions and billions of stars. You can't count them. And it's an impossible thing to do. Therefore, it must be that the stars, that when Hashem says to him, count the stars, not him to count the stars, he's time to look inside and see the impact. The concept of counting means that things have an impact, have an individual impact. And what is he showing? He says that you have to understand that it's not that we're going to be like the stars, but rather in the same way that the stars in the sky light up black spots and shed light, so too Zar'ol haaretz hosif kanchi yuharbe anshe maile sheiru kakochavim. There'll be incredible amount of great people who will give light like the stars do, fill black spaces in the world. Because obviously it's impossible to count the stars. He says, but understand that in the same way as against the blackness of the sky, the stars are few, the blackness is enormous, and the stars are few. Nonetheless, will be able, the seed of Abraham will have incredible impact, that they will shed light into the world. And that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he speaks about us being, like the stars of the sky, says the Netziv is going to do with numbers. You can't say it's got numbers because numbers are irrelevant here. But rather it's about the impact that we have in the world and bringing the light into that. And on that, Ve'emin ba'Adonai ve'achshaveh lo tzedakah. Ve'emin b'Hashem. Avraham Avinu has such incredible faith that he believes in Hashem, as Rashi says, "V'lo sha'al lo'ot al zot." He didn't ask for a proof. Aval al Yerushat ha'aretz sha'al lo'ot v'amar lo b'ma'ida. So on this concept of understanding that his children will be great in the world, Avraham never asks for a sign. Later on, when Hashem says, I'm going to give you the land, that Avraham asks for a sign. But what does it mean? Why does he believe him so much? Because Avraham Avinu is a man of unbelievable self-worth. He understands that he carries the capacity to bring people closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it's been proved in the stories that we've read about Avraham. He creates Haran. He creates this enormous amount of people in Haran. He's got these friends, Mamre and Er and Eshkol. He's got these incredible, powerful people that he's impacted on. There's no reason why, if people don't learn the lessons from Avraham Avinu, they also can't impact them. Also, that's an easy one for him to believe in, says Rashi. V'yachshaveh lo tzedakah, which is a strange way of understanding, a strange passage. V'yachshaveh, and he considered him as tzedakah, to his merit. Who's considering? Who? Rashi says, Hakadosh Baruch Hu chashva la'Avram niskut. Hakadosh Baruch Hu considered Avram as a schus, as his emunah, as a schut. The fact that he had such deep emunah in Hashem that he didn't even ask for a sign or a proof that his children will be like that, because he understood that a person who has deep belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a person who's able to achieve great things in this world. So he never asked for that. And that because HaKadosh Baruch Hu considers as a wonderful thing. Maybe we can also say, when Avraham Avinu says, how will I know that this is going to come true? It's not that he asked him for a sign, rather he said to him, I need to understand is says that what is the schut, what is the merit upon which my children, my progeny, the generations that come after me will be able to do this, will be able to be so great. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to him, I'll tell you what, if you look at the carry on the story is about that famous action that happens that we speak about even in the Pesach Seder of the Brit Bein HaBetarim. The Brit Bein HaBetarim really is the first concept of godly instructed korban that we have. Before this, korbanot were always brought by people because they wanted to, because they felt a need to bring a korban in some way to attach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Here, we have for the first time, Hashem tells Avram what to take. And comes along Rashi and he says, you know what the schut is for us as Am Yisrael to continue to be great? That is the korbanot. Why would the korbanot be the things that will indicate our schut, our continuation in our greatness in our world? And I think the answer is very simple. Because korban is a means where we come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu using these live animals, which in many ways are supposed to represent us, which we then shech, and we take the blood, and we pour it in different places, and we take yain, and we take all these different things, and we dedicate them to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if we really understood what they meant, it would show us that we are dedicating everything of ourselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Well, so we dedicate ourselves. How does that make us great? Well, a real dedication to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is finding the absolute strength within each one of us that we are able to dedicate to Hashem, and able to dedicate to the glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in bringing Hashem's name into this world. And so therefore, what is it? What's the schut of us maintaining our greatness as a people? That is the schut of us bringing the name of Hashem into incredible repute all the time, developing the reputation of Hashem in this world. And as we develop that reputation, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu develops us within that context as well. Why? Because we're showing who we are and developing our true potential. And at the end of the day, I think that's really what Hashem really wants from us, is to be able to shine each individual our special light, like those stars in the heaven, in order to be able to develop who and what we are. The Emek Dava, the Netziv, says a little bit different in terms of this concept of Amin B'Hashem. He says that the emunah that Avraham had at this point in time was an understanding that he no longer had to worry. Avraham's biggest worry is not that he won't have children. That's not his concern. His concern is that he's developed a system of belief in Hashem, which is so strong and so powerful and so impactful on so many people's lives. And his concern is who's going to take that over. You can't have Eliezer taking that over, because Eliezer, who is the servant of Avraham Avinu, is not only the servant of Avraham Avinu. Eliezer comes from Damasek, and Damasek is a child of Canaan. He's a child of Avadim. He's a child of slaves, and a child of slaves can never be a great leader on a conceptual level. That's part of the greatness of the Jewish people, is that the Jewish people went through Egypt, we went through a space of slavery, but we were never slaves. We were enslaved, but we were never slaves. That's why we can become leaders. That's what Avraham Avinu is worried about. Hashem says, and don't worry, you will have your own children who will be able to take those lessons that you've taken them, that you've taught, and take them on to the future. And that's why the Netziv says, and this will finish, Avraham chashav, he says not that Hashem considers Abraham's emunah as the tzedakah, but rather the other way around. Abraham considers Hashem's promise without any conditions as tzedakah. He says that's the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu deals with things. The tzedakah is the tzedakah of Hashem is that He gives us without requesting any conditions. And if that's the case, then we understand that Avraham Avinu's relationship with Hashem is so deep and so entrenched that his biggest concerns are now starting to be dissipated. Number one, he will have progeny that will take him forward and take his ideas forward. And number two, not only will he have children, but they will have a place where they will be able to use as their base, because you can never really be successful unless one has a fixed base. And that's the place of Eretz Yisrael. And that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu promises him after he promises him that he will be like the stars of the sky. Let's stop there.